All right, everybody, I'm Logan Alec. I'm a CPA. I just got through reading the student loan sections of the proposed HEROES Act. Yes, I said sections. There's one section specifically for private student loans and another section for federal student loans. I'm going to get into all of it in this video, and it's actually a bit more nuanced than a lot of the publications are letting on. You're kind of just seeing, oh, $10,000 student loan forgiveness kind of bandied around, but it's actually a bit more nuanced than that, especially on the private student loan side. So let's start with the proposed protections and forgiveness for federal student loans, and then I'll talk about what the HEROES Act is proposing to do for private student loans. So let's go back to the CARES Act, because the CARES Act provides a framework for the HEROES Act with respect to student loans. All right, so just going back to the CARES Act automatically paused payments until September 30th on both the principal and interest for many, but not all, federal student loans. So until September 30th, 2020, the CARES Act said no interest would accrue on those federally held loans, so that if you don't make payments during this time, because there's this payment holiday, your balance wouldn't get any larger. All right. The CARES Act also provided for a suspension of involuntary collections. However, not all federal student loans qualified for these protections under the CARES Act. Only direct loans or FFEL loans, FFEL loans held by the Department of Education. FFEL loans are the old Federal Family Education loans. When I graduated from college, I had over $30,000 of FFEL loans because direct loans weren't around yet. All right. So commercially held FFEL loans, that is FFEL loans that were not held by the Department of Education, as well as Perkins loans, which are typically held by your college or university. These did not qualify under the CARES Act for the payment holiday through September 30th, 2020. Now, the HEROES Act, the new Democratic proposal, is saying that all those loans, those federal student loans that didn't qualify under the CARES Act for the payment holiday till September 30th for the suspension of involuntary collections, now they will qualify just the same as the direct loans and FFEL loans held by the Department of Education that were specified in the CARES Act. All right. It also says that this would be retroactive, that you would receive a refund of any amounts you paid that you wouldn't have paid if these loans were included in the original CARES Act. The HEROES Act would also extend the payment pause on all these loans for another year. CARES Act says payments are paused until September 30th, 2020. The HEROES Act proposes to extend that to September 30th, 2021. It also says that for the 30 days after September 30th, 2021, there's a transition period during which if you miss a payment in that window, in that 30-day window, you won't be charged a late fee and it won't impact your credit. HEROES Act also proposes that the period during which no interest accrues on your loans would last until the later of September 30th, 2021, or 2 months after the unemployment rate shows initial signs of recovery, and they define initial signs of recovery by some complicated formula that I'm not going to get into, all right? Also, the HEROES Act now allows you to consolidate, or it proposes to allow you to consolidate your non-direct loans into a direct loan, right? Well, that was always a possibility, right? But now it's saying if you do that, your payments made before the consolidation would still count toward public service loan forgiveness if you qualify for that. If you work for a qualifying employer, after you make 120 qualifying payments, you would qualify to have your student loans forgiven, right? If you're in public service. The way the law exists now, without the HEROES Act, if you had a non-direct loan, for example, a FFEL loan, like I had when I graduated, you would first have to consolidate into a direct loan, right, in order to take advantage of public service loan forgiveness. It doesn't sound so bad, right? But here's the kicker. Under current law, any payments you made on your FFEL loan prior to consolidating into a direct loan, those payments would not count toward the 120 qualifying payments for public service loan forgiveness, and you would have had to consolidate into a direct loan in order to qualify for public service loan forgiveness. The HEROES Act is saying that now those previous payments, those pre-consolidation payments, would now count toward the 120 qualifying payments you need for public service loan forgiveness. They would combine with the payments made post-consolidation to accumulate payments toward the required 120 payments, okay? So if you consolidate between whenever the HEROES Act passes, if it passes, and September 30th, 2021, you get this benefit if you are otherwise eligible for public service loan forgiveness, all right? Now, let's move on to the big kicker, student loan forgiveness for federal student loan borrowers. I'll get to private student loans here in a minute, but for now, let me just read you the text of the bill as it pertains to federal student loans. Here it is. Not later than 30 days after the date of enactment of the HEROES Act, the Secretary shall cancel or repay an amount on the outstanding balance due, including the unpaid principal amount, any accrued interest, and any fees or charges on the federal student loans defined above, essentially, that is equal to the lesser of $10,000 or the total outstanding balance due on such loans of the borrower. So yes, the HEROES Act is proposing student loan forgiveness for federal student loans of up to $10,000 in principal, interest, and fees, and this would be tax-free. The HEROES Act specifically says this would be tax-free, no taxable cancellation of debt income. And of course, the HEROES Act says this all would be implemented as though it were part of the original CARES Act, okay? Now, let's talk about what the HEROES Act says about private student loans. There is a $10,000 component for private student loans as well, but it's a little bit different than the $10,000 cancellation for federal student loans. A lot of YouTubers and even like here's a Forbes article, right? It kind of just lumped these things together under the words student loan forgiveness. But there's an important nuance here that is completely missed by many YouTubers and by this Forbes article. And that nuance is that while for federal student loans, the $10,000 is just declared to be canceled. Zap, it's gone. With private student loans, what the bill proposes is not a snap $10,000 forgiven. That's not what it proposes with private student loans. What the HEROES Act proposes for private student loans is that from the date the HEROES Act passes, if it passes, until September 30th, 2021, the government will make payments on your private student loans for you up to a maximum of $10,000 in payments, and payments would include principal and interest, whatever your normal monthly payment would be. And then after September 30th, 2021, any unused portion of the $10,000 amount will be applied to your outstanding private student loan balance to the extent there is a balance remaining. And get this, these payments that the government is making for you will count for your credit score as though you had made them yourself. And this makes sense. There are, we're talking about private student loans here, right? The government doesn't have the power like it does for federal student loans to just like snap its fingers and then cancel the balance of a debt owed to a private creditor, right? So the best it can do is make payments on the loans. HEROES Act also proposes that interest not be capitalized on private student loans all the way through September 2021. Sound familiar? Of course, the bad part about interest being capitalized on a student loan is that when it's capitalized, it becomes principal, essentially, okay? And is now accruing interest on itself. So when interest capitalizes to the loan balance, now you have interest accruing on interest, which sucks, right? HEROES Act also proposes that involuntary collections on private student loans shall cease through September 2021. It institutes the creation of essentially income-driven repayment plans for private student loan companies. All right, that is what the HEROES Act proposes for student loan borrowers. And hey, if you're concerned about your student loan situation, and if you have $20,000, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $400,000 plus in student loans, then even if this thing passes, you still have a long road ahead of you, okay? $10,000 forgiveness would be nice for you, but it's not going to dig you out of that hole, all right? The rules regarding student loan forgiveness and all the different repayment plans are very tricky. So to help people navigate them, I recommend a group of folks who specialize in student loan planning. There's a link in the description below. This is not some shady student loan consolidation service charging you a ton of money for something you could do yourself through the Department of Education. These are professionals, CFPs, CPAs, CFAs, who offer consulting services, okay, okay? It is not free. You will pay them for their services they provide. But in my opinion, there are none better when it comes to putting together a custom student loan plan to ensure that you are minimizing both your monthly payment as well as minimizing any student loan forgiveness you may be eligible for, okay? I mean, they've worked with doctors who thought they were on the right track for student loan forgiveness, but it turns out they weren't. So if you have massive student loan debt and you want to make sure you're playing your cards right, not just, through this September, right, or September 2021, as the Democrats want with the HEROES Act, but for the next 10, 20 years to maximize your cash flow and your net worth and maximize your loan forgiveness balance, check out the link in the description below to learn more. All right, I hope this video is informational and educational to you. Please be sure to share it with anybody who has student loans. I will be back later with another video later today. Bye-bye.